Hey guys, we're back. This time we're going to be taking a look at one of the expansions for Nemesis. This time around it is the Void Seeders. And these were originally included with the Kickstarter pledge for the base game when it first came out. And they were combined with the Aftermath expansion. Now they're available in this standalone box. So I'm not sure if this means that they're available at retail. But I know there are places out there that have them thanks to the reprints that came with the Lockdown campaign. But the Void Seeder expansion is basically going to add a new race of aliens to replace the intruders from the base game. And they changed things up a little bit where the intruders were more of a nod to aliens. These guys are kind of a Cthulhu. They got the tentacle thing going, but they're a psychic-based race that get in your head and basically cause you to go insane. And it comes with some new mechanics for insanity and a lot of really cool models. And so just basically allows you to change up the base game and fight against something different on the Nemesis. So that said, we're going to get in here and take a look at everything that comes in the Void Seeders expansion. So first thing we have in the box here is the rules pamphlet, and it's not very thick. It's tiny by comparison to most, and that's because you're going to be using 90% of the base game rules. These are just the additional rules for the new race. A nice table of contents there in the beginning. The game setup, because things have changed a little bit. There's some new tokens and things to put out. You have a new setup section. And then it talks about the intro, little fluff text there. And then the new rules specific to the Void Seeders. And their new encounter chart. And the new event phase. And then a couple things that change basic rules from the original game. And then your cheat summary here on the back. In our box here. I'm not going to pull all of the various models out. I might get a couple out. What is this right in here? Oh, it's a mess. Somebody flipped the box over. There we go. So I'm not going to pull all the models out. Maybe one of each just to give you a quick show, but I don't know the names of these, so I may have to actually get the chart out and look. I want to say they're on the board here. So there we have our different types. Creeper, which is a lurker, a whisperer, a stalker, and a despoiler. You can see our board's changed up a little bit. We do still have eggs in the nest. And down here we have our weaknesses, and then the 3 destroyed layers here for our player board, or for our Void Seeder board. So I'm going to try to get these right. This is going to be our Queen Despoiler, and it doesn't have a base, which is pretty cool. Makes it pretty easy to paint, I would think. So these really neat textured tentacles. I like the style. A little bit of a gap there on the model though, on the leg. So I think this one is going to be our Stalker. You're probably looking in the rule book and it probably says what each one is, but it's wrapped around. It's left of a piece of the ship, I believe, there. Definitely a cool looking model. And then these are going to be our adult whisperers, and I love the tentacles on these guys. They have the suction cups showing on them. And like these bone scythe arms. Pretty cool looking dudes. And there's 4 of those. And then these ones are going to be the lurkers. And you get 8 of those, I think. 6 of those, sorry. And then we have our nests, which are hard to get out of here. And these actually remind me of the egg sacs from Aliens with the tentacles around them. Very similar to those. Then we have a bunch of tokens. I think these are the Insanity Tracker tokens for each of the different player colors. Then we have the tokens to represent the various creatures and their surprise attacks that come out of the development bag. Oddly enough, these do not have the symbol on the back side like the ones in the base game. They have the warning number on both sides, and of course there's a blank in there as well. It's also worth noting that these are smaller, maybe 25, 26 millimeters across, versus the tokens that come in the base game that are almost 30. I know I put mine in cases, and these are way smaller than those. These are about the same size as the intruder carcasses from the base game. So that's worth keeping in mind, especially if you're like me and you want to put those cases on there. They are different scale, so it's worth knowing. And I don't have the punch board anymore as I punched all the tokens out, but you'll notice there's a row of these tokens missing on the punch board. I think they were printed wrong or offset or something, but they include this small punch board to add in. And these are going to be your nests, and they're going to get mixed in with your normal exploration tokens. And then as you explore the ship, you're going to discover the various nests throughout the ship. Onto our cards, we have the little cards here. And the first thing we have are the insanity trackers for each of the player characters. There's 5 in there, 1 for each character. And then we have the Void Seeder weakness cards, very similar to the weakness cards on the normal intruders. And you're going to get these from doing the various scanning the carcasses and things like that. Those are actually listed across the bottom of the board there that I have buried, so you can't see. Then we move on to our normal size cards here. And first thing we have are something that was missing from the original game, which I love. You have these help cards here that have your player phase on the front. Those were on the pass cards in the main game, but on the back you have the bag development cards and what's going to be happening based on what you draw out of the bag. And there's one of those for each player. Nice to have. Like I said, with the base game, they added those in Aftermath, but they weren't in the base game itself. Then we have our Void Seeder attack cards, and these function just like the attack cards in the base game. You're going to flip them over. Up here you have the wounds, so you know if you killed them or not. Down here you have the type of creature affected and the effect down here. In fact, that same card is in the base game. But there are some different ones in here. Dismay, Brain Eating, Scratch and Bite, I think were in the base game. Duplicate. So, some interesting things in there. And we have a new event deck for use when playing against the Void Seeders. And these kind of play off the psychological things that are going on. And they make all sorts of weird things happen. As well as some stuff that's pretty similar to the original, but I think most of these are unique to this. I guess Hunt was in the original, but again, cool and thematic to this. And then finally we have the panic cards. And as your characters are slowly being driven insane on your insanity tracks based on what's going on, they're going to start getting into these, which cause them to do some crazy stuff, from dealing wounds. This one's sabotaging a room, makes the item counter go down to 0. Self-mutilation. Crazy stuff goes on when you start getting a little insane and panicking from the hallucinations and everything else that is going on board the Nemesis when the Void Seeders are around. And that's everything that's in the box. The insert here works perfectly fine for just this expansion if you want to keep it and store it in here. Thankfully enough, the spots even fit sleeved cards. The tokens fit in here. All the models have their own spots. Pretty nice way they have it all set up. Everything fits in there nice and neatly. No real need for an upgraded insert on that, which is pretty cool. And that's a look at everything that comes in the Void Seeders expansion. While it doesn't add new content per se, it switches up the existing content by making a new enemy to face during the campaign. A couple new mechanics in here do switch things up a little bit. The panic stuff is pretty cool. And I don't know if it's a spoiler, but the way that the Void Seeders function and how they're different from the others, it might not be a spoiler, but I don't want to say it anyway, just in case some of you out there are interested in the story and lore behind them. But the concept, the core mechanic of how they work changes. It's a very interesting concept once you look into it. And I just screwed those up trying to make them nice and neat, and I knocked them all over. But it really changes up things and makes you think about it. It's a psychological thing, and it's interesting the way that they work that mechanic in, and I like how it turned out. Definitely a different experience than the base game. I want to say they're slightly easier to win against than the intruders are. It's kind of a toss-up there, but I think overall, I think they are slightly easier. They're certainly not as physically intimidating. It's that insanity that you got to watch out for and losing in the end on a technicality. So anyway, that is a look at everything that comes in the Void Seeders expansion for Nemesis from Awakened Realms. It's a really cool add-on to the game. It adds, again, more variety because you now have a new alien race, new mechanics that you can play with the old existing game. Gives you one more option to change things up, combined with the different characters you play and the randomization of the tokens and rooms and everything on the ship. So overall, I think it's well worth getting if you can find it. And about this at the end of my Nemesis video is that when this originally was released, it was a kind of an exclusive thing that came in the Kickstarter bonus box. It was actually in this, and Aftermath came in the same box. And the only way to get it was to back the original campaign. Now, this being reprinted now thanks to lockdown, and it's in its own standalone box, the fact that they went through the effort to make a new standalone box makes me think that they might be trying to bring it to retail, if it's not already. And if it's available, it's great. But if it's still a kind of a limited exclusive thing, I hate that when it comes to actual gameplay content. So put me down for saying that. I hate exclusives that are content based. Make them cosmetic. But that said, this is an excellent expansion. It's an excellent addition to the game, and it's going to add a lot more variety and change things up a bit for you. If you want just that little something extra, maybe you've played Nemesis to death and you're tired of the intruders that come in the base game, and you get some new aliens to play around with. As I said, I do think they're a little easier overall to deal with than the base game Aliens were, and that's not necessarily a bad game. That game can be brutally hard sometimes based on what comes up, and this can make that a little bit easier to deal with, but it doesn't change the fun and suspense you get from the game in doing so. So anyway, that is going to wrap it up for our look at the Void Seeder expansion for Nemesis from Awakened Realms. As always, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.